That said, we didn't touch on trade deadline, and there's a lot of great players during the All Star weekend, but are their teams doing the best thing for them to move up in the ranks and to actually become contenders? I think the Bucks were already contenders. They kind of slipped, but did they do anything during the trade deadline to change that for some of us? So we're gonna go through some of these trades and see if our minds. We've done a sleeper, pretender, contender video before, so we're gonna go through these and see kind of did this change anything for us as far as some of these teams. And I'm gonna run through some of these trade. We're not going to go talk about the trades that happened before trade deadline. There were some we know all about, OG Anunoby and even Kyle Lowry, Terry Rozier. So we're not going to touch on those. Those have affected other teams because of buyout. We may talk a little bit about that, but we're just going to go through these that happened during the trade deadline. So one of the trades that happened was the Mavs picked up PJ Washington from the Hornets. Mavs received PJ Washington, the 2024 second round pick, a 2028 second round pick. The Hornets received Grant Williams, Seth Curry, and 2027 first round pick. And let me just, because the Mavericks made another trade, they also got, let me pull that up, Daniel Gafford, and they shipped off Richaun Holmes and a 2024 first round pick. So the Mavs, what you think about that trade? Does this help their case? I think we have them as pretenders. Does this help that case to move into maybe a sleeper role or even a contender role with PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford?
So what I will say, first shout out Daniel Gafford. Me and him played 2K together a few times. He's actually my friend on PlayStation. So shout out Daniel Gafford. Keep doing your thing.
Big shout out. Dog. Check out GOATcast podcast.
But to get to that, I think Gafford is a nice pickup. I think a first round pick might be a little bit on the higher side in terms of asking price for Gafford, but he's a really good center, very solid. I think him and Lively can split the minutes, and they can both give you great energy at that 5 position. So I like that they have some depth there. Because Richaun Holmes is okay. I mean, if this is just a straight up trade with no Lively, like that, he's kind of your future, I would say this is more of like a marginally lateral move for both teams. But I like Daniel Gafford more than I like Richaun Holmes. I think he's like a tier above him in terms of just production. I think PJ Washington could be a really big X factor for this team. He could allow them to go small, play solid defense. I mean, obviously I think he's like 6'6", 6'7". He's he's a really small power forward, but he plays bigger than what he is. Yeah. And he could definitely give them some really good minutes at the 5. If like I said, if they need to go small and teams are picking on their Lively for his youth and Daniel Gafford because he doesn't move the best laterally, I think PJ Washington could slide in that 5 spot and give them a new dimension. It depends on his growth and his development as the season goes on, how he fits with this roster. But I think right now he's coming off the bench and he's playing in spurts, giving them pretty solid production. But I think that PJ Washington is more of an X factor than Daniel Gafford. And I think if they can connect all the pieces with PJ Washington, I think this would move them from pretender. And obviously a lot of time has to be spent, so I won't say contender, but I'll definitely say a sleeper team. There'll be a team that you'll need to watch out for if all the pieces connect.
I agree that if I was rating what the Mavs did, I give them it's a low A, but I give them an A because I think this bolsters their lineup. They're relying a lot on a rookie, so having somebody like Daniel Gafford is going to help them. It's not going to hurt them. It's going to help them. And PJ Washington, they need a tough defender. They need a guy that's going to go out there and just give them, energy and give them good minutes. And I think that's what they did with him. And I think that's going to be, I agree with you. I think they're moving from pretender to a sleeper. I think they're going to be a dangerous team for certain. If a certain team like say I hate to say it, but because I got them going far, but the Clippers team. I think if they met a Clippers team, if they met a Suns team, definitely. I think those pieces kind of give them a maybe a little something to get them over the hump for some of those teams. So I definitely think they went out and really did some good work. Their general managers and the organization, definitely, I give them props for what they put together there. So we're going to move on to the Philadelphia 76ers, who had a little skid since Embiid's been out, but they're still admirable out east. They traded for Buddy Hield from the Pacers. That's kind of shocking. You got two Eastern Conference contenders trading players, and so Sixers get Buddy Hield, and the Pacers get Furkan Korkmaz. I'll tore that name up. Close enough. Doug McDermott from the Spurs, who helped facilitate this. A 2024 second round pick via the Raptors, 2029 second round pick via Blazers. They got cash, and the Spurs get Marcus Morris and a 2029 second round pick from the Clippers and cash consideration. So, Buddy Hield for the 76ers. Do you like that? Does that move the needle any for you when it comes to the Sixers?
So with Joel Embiid's injury kind of like being that big dark cloud that's over the Sixers, I mean, this is a good move. Maybe for next season, I don't really see them going too far. If you are rushing Joel Embiid back from his knee injury, there's like conversations that he could come back this year, but he probably wouldn't be 100%. So it's like, why risk it? Why, jeopardize anything you have long term with Joel Embiid? So he's probably going to shut it down. So I mean, this is a good move to retool for next year and to move on from some of those contracts that obviously they have enough depth, and I think they sacrificed Marcus Morris, who was kind of in and out of the rotation. Korkmaz was okay. I don't know if he played that much, and I mean,
so basically saying they didn't give nothing up to get.
They didn't really give up anything. But in terms of impact for this year, I mean, without Joel Embiid, they could grab a whole bunch of different pieces, but it won't matter unless Joel Embiid's there. And I think this season's a wash for the Sixers. Obviously, this is good for Tyrese Maxey to get his reps up, and hopefully Embiid can stay healthy for next year, because this team could be pretty formidable with Buddy Hield and Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid as like their big three, with some key contributions from Oubre and Tobias Harris, who they still retain. So it could be interesting for them next year, but it's just a shame that we won't get to see much because Embiid still injury prone.
Yeah, you hate to see that happen, and you might blame it on the 65 game rule where he played where he probably should have played. But I think Buddy Hield, you never turn down shooting, not in this day and age in the NBA. So adding a shooter is a plus. And if they can keep that team intact, I think they're probably better than Boston next year. I think Tyrese, if he keeps on his trajectory, Embiid comes back fully healthy, you implement Hield, Tobias Harris actually, because I don't think he's that old, so I think he still has time to, to move up to the next level. I think they're going to be probably the best team in the East, or one of the best teams in the East, if everybody comes back and everybody's healthy. So
you got some high hopes on some of the.
I mean,
they'll be formidable.
Holiday, these guys are getting older.
Drew Holiday, they'll be over Boston. That's a little wild.
I mean, Drew Holiday's looking older.
I mean, they don't need too much. They don't need too much from Drew Holiday. He gives them effort on defense. I mean,
but you're relying a lot on two guys, Tatum and Brown.
I mean, those guys are young though. And they're not
very young, but we've seen they can be stopped, and
not by the Sixers. Definitely not by them.
Well, we're still looking at the ascension of Tyrese Maxey, and then you, like I said, we throw in Buddy Hield, you throw in, maybe Tobias Harris gets a little better, maybe he finally feels into what they thought he would be.
That man like 30, man. He ain't getting no better. What you see is what you get.
You be throwing 30 out like it's old. It's not. Once they hit like 33 plus in the NBA, that's when they're starting to get old. But 30 is not old in the NBA.
But you talk about him getting better like he's like 24. Like,
but I mean, he can refine his game to actually benefit from and help what Maxey and Embiid bring. That's what I think. But so we're gonna move on. The Phoenix Suns, who they're looking a little better, but they still need some help. They added what I think is a pretty good trade. So they had a 3-team trade where they received Royce O'Neal from the Nets and David Roddy from the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies received a 2026 first-round pick from the Suns, Chimezie Metu from the Suns, and Yuta Watanabe. The Nets received Keita Bates-Diop from the Suns and Jordan Goodwin from the Suns. They get draft rights to somebody's name I'm not even going to try from the Grizzlies and 3 future second-round picks. That's got a lot. So here, do you think the Suns, I believe we also put them as we might have put them as sleepers, but I think we were still waiting for, I think when we did that video, they still hadn't really got their full lineup. I think Bill was still out and Booker was in and out. So does this change anything for you? They add O'Neal, he's a defender, and Roddy from the Grizzlies. What you think? Does this push the needle either way?
I mean, it is good, like in terms of quality of players for their bench, because this is really for their bench. If we're talking about an upgrade, like obviously Yuta was getting a whole bunch of DMPs. That Bates D-Up guy, I mean, I liked the energy that he brought in some games that he played, but he wasn't giving them too much anyway. Just a lot of effort and hustle. But the Suns really needed production, especially in that second unit. Obviously, Royce O'Neal and David Roddy, they're not going to give you but so much, and they're not going to shot create by any stretch of the imagination, which is something I feel like they need. They need somebody to come off the bench and create, while you got your starters sitting down or a combination of them off the court. You need some shot creation, or you need at least some decent playmaking. But both of those things weren't addressed. I think Royce O'Neal is a fine player. He's a good catch and shoot 3-and-D guy. He's a little undersized for my liking when you go into a deep playoff series against big wings out in West like Luka Doncic, LeBron James. Like, you can't throw him at them, right? Maybe you could throw him at some of the other players to keep them at bay, but he's not stopping anybody that actually is going to have the ball in their hands for majority of the game. But those two are nice pickups. David Roddy's a pretty big, like 6'4" guard. Like, he's like 250. Like, he's a big dude. He's just pretty much a big waste of space most nights. But I mean, he give you some. He can
shoot a little bit.
He give you some spurts of some 3-point shooting and some physical defense. But all the same, these guys are going to be middle. Maybe give you some impact. At least for the regular season, they'll help them. But postseason, I don't think Roddy gonna get too much burn. And Royce O'Neal and his name might get some burn, but he probably gonna get cooked a few possessions and come sit right back down. So I don't have too much faith in these.
So if the Suns kind of tweak their lineup and maybe bring a Bradley Beal off the bench, do you think that gives them a second unit playmaker that can, with some of those new guys, that could, help the Suns elevate?
I know you didn't just insinuate that Bradley Beal would be okay playing behind somebody like Royce O'Neal.
I mean, you sometimes you got to make these adjustments to if you want to win championships. We've seen it with Manu Ginobili. He did it.
Man, Manu is not. Look, Manu Ginobili. He played for the Spurs. There's an unwritten rule in there of agreements Pop's way, and they all benefited from Pop.
But Bill has to realize, or should realize, that he's not the Bill of the Washington Wizards.
I couldn't tell. You remember when me and you watched that Warriors game? That man was pulling. He got that ball and it was going up.
I understand that, but I'm just saying, could someone on that team kind of guide him to say, hey, if you come off the bench, I think that would, boost what you bring to this team and play with that second unit and bring that kind of firepower off the bench that we may need when we're playing in these playoff series with the Luka, with the Lakers, the Kings, these type of teams. We may need that firepower off the bench. You don't think he would be like, okay, well, maybe if I do this, this will help the team to get to that next level, maybe move out of pretender, even sleeper status to contenders.
Nah, I don't think you don't think he can be talked into anything that they do, like internally, like without getting more pieces. They're not going to be a contender in my eyes.
So they're just not contenders at all.
Nah, I don't really have faith in a team like this because they're not really structured in the way that champions have been built the last few seasons. Like they give up, like, yeah, they have some size, but they're not like a big team. They're not very I guess you could say locked in. You
say that, but look at the 2022 Golden State Warriors. They weren't big. What big did they have on that team? They had Looney.
Listen, what I mean,
they were a team filled with wings.
Okay, but when you think about that team, though, Steph Curry was playing out of his mind, and they ran into an inexperienced Boston Celtics team. And that Boston Celtics team was the better team. They just did not execute. They had a lot of turnovers. They got flustered by the Warriors' championship pedigree, and they paid for it. But Boston had every right to win that series, and they could have if certain players showed up when they needed them to. Now you throw in the Suns, and like you said when we had that hot takes video that probably didn't go up, when you talked about you think the Clippers you have the Clippers over them. You said that the Mavs could give them a scare. Obviously, like OKC is a team to be reckoned with. Obviously, they don't have much playoff experience, but they're not going to go down easy if they have to play them. Minnesota's a big team, and they'll punish them boys down low, and they have enough defense to bother them. So it's like you got all these teams, and Phoenix isn't going to have home court for a lot of those matchups.
So depending on how they go. So the Suns didn't do it for you with their trades.
I mean, you got two guys who are going to sit in the corner and look pretty. Like, when we talk about actual contributions, we need somebody who's going to create and do something besides wait for KD, Booker, and Beal to pass them the ball. Okay. That's just my opinion.
I got you. I'm somewhat on board, but I think they got a little better. I still don't think they'd be the Clippers in the first round or any round, period. But I think they got better. If basketball gods see fit, if they get the perfect bracket, they could do something. So moving on, the OKC Thunder, which you just mentioned, made a move. So they received Gordon Hayward from the Hornets, and the Hornets, they got Vasil Micic. I don't even know how to pronounce his name. Trey Mann, Davis Bertans, a 2024 second-round pick via the Rockets, and a 2025 second-round pick via the 76ers. I like this trade, but I don't think this makes them better.
Why do you think that?
Because Gordon Hayward is probably the most inconsistent player you could have traded for. He's injury prone. He's hit or miss when it comes to offense. You can't trust him to come in and get you what you need on a nightly basis, and especially when it comes playoff time. I I saw Gordon Hayward with those Boston Celtics, and he put up some disappearing acts.
Before or after he basically broke his leg?
Both. If you think I saw him when he was with the Jazz. He was inconsistent there. He was young, but he was inconsistent there. So I like it because I think that's the right mindset they should have, is to put some veterans in there in the mix with their young talent, because that's what's going to push them to the next level. Is Gordon Hayward the veteran they needed? I don't think so, but I don't think it's a bad trade. I don't think it hurts them, but I don't think this makes them much better.
So let me tell you why I like this trade for them. Right? They're not asking. Or first, before I get to Gordon Hayward, Trey Mann, a great shooter, undersized, but he's got a good future in the NBA if he keeps shooting that three ball. Davis Bertans, let's be honest, he wasn't getting much PT, man. He was sitting riding that pine all the way.
He could shoot though. Season. That's what's crazy. He could shoot.
He can shoot, but like if you can't do much else on the floor, your role is going to be diminished at like, what is he, about 45 now? You know, like he probably like in his like.
It took him a while to get in the NBA. He was draft stashed by the Spurs, and he took him a while to get there.
So if you're giving up a player who's not going to get any PT come the postseason, and Davis Bertans who's not getting PT in the regular season, you're getting addition by subtraction anyway, because you're getting two guys off the roster that really wasn't going to play like that. You bring in Gordon Hayward, and now when you have sometimes the Thunder have some struggles with Josh Giddey, right? He's still a raw player. He's got is a little underdeveloped on the offensive end. Great passer, decent motor, but he's not much of a defender, and he's not much of a shooter, right? So teams will use that against them come the postseason. So you plug in Gordon Hayward, and like I said, you say he's inconsistent, but he's what, fourth, fifth option on that team when they need to go for him. He's basically a glorified role player. He can come in. He can still give you 16 and 18, 16 to 18 when his number is called on. It might not be the most efficient 16 or 18, but he can produce. You're not getting 16 from Bertans. You could probably get maybe 9 to 12 from Trey. Nah, you ain't getting that from. Not. I mean, even NBA defense today is pretty bad, but if your team is giving up 16 to 18 from Bertans, you guys might need to go to
put up buckets with the Wizards. He was doing good with the Wizards.
Yeah, he was until he wasn't.
True.
But I think, like I said, I think you plug him in where Giddey is, because he can play, 2, 3, sometimes even 4 on some nights, depending on the matchups. He's very versatile. I think he's a solid player for them, and I think you can put him in when Josh Giddey is having one of his stinkers.
But does this push them beyond? I believe I do put them as contenders.
I think we put them as sleepers, because I think I said that they didn't have much playoff or enough playoff experience where I say they're true contenders.
So does this bump them up any?
I still want to see what they do in the postseason, because it's obviously they Chet's still new, and some of these other guys have had some playoff run, but not like now. You guys are instead of being the hunter, you guys are being the hunted, because now they're like a top 1 to 2 seed. So like now these other teams are going to be gunning for them instead of being vice versa. So I like to see how they respond to that kind of pressure and those expectations.
They don't want the Lakers first round.
Hey,
I'll
give you my thoughts on that when time comes, but just know they better take care of business. They don't want to see a veteran team early in the first round.
LeBron and AD will eat them alive.
But Gordon Hayward does help, but I won't put them in contender, because I need to see how they perform as a top seed in the Western Conference.
Gotcha. So we're going to do 3 more trades, and then we're going to call it a night. The winner of the trade deadline, in my opinion, and I guess that's giving away, the New York Knicks. The New York Knicks added Alex Burks, Bojan Bogdanovic. They gave up to the Pistons Evan Fournier, Malachi Flynn, Quentin Grimes, who was playing good for him, Ryan RCD Alcana. He was the one that couldn't buy a basket. 2 future second-round picks and cash consideration. The Knicks, in my opinion, have gone all in for win now, and I think they won the trade deadline easily. And I'm not going to. I don't want to put too much hyperbole, but they're contenders. What you think?
Yeah, I mean, especially how shaky Milwaukee's looked, and now basically Philadelphia is their chances are in the win with whenever if Embiid comes back and if he comes back 100%. You know, with those two teams being as shaky as they are, the only solid team right now is Boston. Mm-hmm. So the way that New York has played, they played probably the best, I'd say, in the Eastern Conference. They've been the best team since acquiring OG. Like since January, they've been one of they've been the best Eastern Conference team in my opinion. So you throw in Bojan Bogdanovic. I don't really care too much about Alec Burks. He shoots he was shooting a lot of crazy shots in Detroit.
He was I don't know why they won them back, but
I guess Tibbs wanted him back. Maybe he just something with him and Tibbs, and they just understand like how each other work. So maybe it was just a seamless fit with that. And obviously, giving up Quentin Grimes, I don't know what was up with him and Tom Thibodeau, but like he wasn't getting consistent minutes, so his production was kind of inconsistent. So I do like the fact that he gets to go to a team like Detroit and maybe flesh out some of his game and just continue to develop, because obviously now that we have them in contender status, he's not going to have that much time to grow because they're going to need him to be everything that he needs to be in New York. But since that expectation is lifted off of his shoulders, he can go to Detroit, play off the ball with Cade Cunningham, and maybe get some easier looks. We'll see. So yeah, I think, like I said, like Bojan Bogdanovic is the biggest piece right here, and he adds another dimension when Julius Randle, and he will have a night or two where he's not playing the best.
Yeah, you got another score.
Put in Bojan Bogdanovic, and that's 20 points easily in the playoff series. Whatever game you need it, he can provide it, and he can do it in great fashion.
Exactly. Yeah, I think, like I said, I think the Knicks realize it's win now. They've got a solid nucleus. I just not a big Tibbs fan. He plays players into the ground. So hopefully they'll be healthy by playoff time, because he's going to play them starters and maybe a couple off the bench, and they're going to play every single minute of every game. So I just hope he manages what he has right now better than he has in the past. But they've set themselves up with the Sixers being weakened like they are. They set themselves up to probably have a pretty good path to maybe the Eastern Conference Finals, because I don't think the Pacers can beat them as currently constructed. I don't think Miami can. I mean, I like Miami's culture, but I don't think they're good enough unless Jimmy comes back fully healthy and just like he was last year, if he just goes crazy. But they just don't have those pieces. They let a lot of pieces go, and they just don't have that got them to that next level last year. So some of these stronger teams in the East are, just not strong enough. And I think the Knicks have built themselves up to be a true contender out East. Now, can they win a championship this year? I don't think so. It would have to play out perfectly for them. But, I mean, they're going to be a scary team for any team they play, because Brunson is just all world. Randall, when he's on. Now they have Bogdanovic, who is, he's hard to stop. And OG with his defense, that's a great mix of guys. So,
and Precious Julia, his defense.
Oh yeah, he's been playing good too. Yeah, they added him, and I didn't know if he'd get any playing time, but he's been playing pretty solid minutes for them. And if they get they got Mitchell Robinson coming back eventually, Hartenstein, who can give them some good minutes. He's tough interior player. They got all the pieces to do it. I mean, they got height, they got shooters, they got scorers, they got some defense. I mean, that's a great mix. So we might be talking about the Knicks long into the playoff time.
It's just lucky that Jalen Brunson plays below the rim, because the way that he got that man running up and down the floor,
I know that man
if he was like a Ja Morant type guy,
he'd be worn out.
Different story for that Knicks team.
Yeah. And I'm only going to give this, we'll move on to this next trade because it has some implications for another team. The Nets and the Raptors made a trade on the trade deadline where the Nets received Dennis Schroeder, Thaddeus Young. The Raptors got Spencer Dinwiddie. As we know, he was bought out and he's now a Laker. Do you think that is a piece that is going to boost the Lakers at all, Spencer Dinwiddie?
In terms of cohesiveness, I know he's got chemistry with D'Angelo Russell, Rui Hachimura, a couple other players, but those two are the main two I just think of top of my head because he played with Rui in Washington and he played with D'Angelo Russell on the Nets. So I mean, he's got some experience with some of the players on that roster. So I mean, that's always good. I don't see him moving the needle too greatly for us. I know he can play make, so he can kind of, if D'Angelo Russell isn't playing very well, he kind of throws himself out of the game. So I think Dinwiddie can come in and kind of stop the bleeding a little bit. Is Dinwiddie our savior? No, he's not going to do too much for us. But I think he can give. I think his greatness will show in a playoff setting, where, like I said, where every possession matters. And like I said, if D'Angelo Russell is kind of having one of his, playoff stinkers, I think Dinwiddie could come in and provide some solid minutes.
Yeah.
So they're not losing too much when either one of them's off the floor. If it's just like you're plugging in one at a time. Now, you plug them both in at the same time, you might have to ask me a different question. But as long as one of them's on the floor at one time, I think that's okay for them. And I think that they play good, They'll give the Lakers enough, but I don't think it's going to be like moving them into like contention or nothing. Like I think it's a pretty much lateral move.
Okay, I mean I agree. He helps some. He's not a player that's going to, that's not the piece they need to win a championship, but he's a solid piece. Were you surprised by the Lakers' inactivity during the trade deadline, and do you think that's going to help them or hurt them? Or you think they're looking at the buyout market a little more than they're looking at, giving pieces away to gain pieces?
So what I think the Lakers are doing is I think they're looking at this like last season we went to the Western Conference Finals. LeBron wasn't as healthy as he is. Anthony Davis is playing all world this year. They're saying we keep our core intact, and they've been playing very well in the month of February. That same lineup the same roster who was struggling because certain players were on the bench. Reeves wasn't getting consistent minutes. D'Angelo Russell got benched. Rui Hachimura got benched. You throw these guys now into the starting lineup, and they're now they're playing their best basketball since the Western Conference playoffs. So I think the Lakers are seeing, like, now that we've made some internal adjustments, I think they're just going to run it back. I think, and if it doesn't work this offseason or this postseason, I think the offseason they're going to gear themselves up for a potential Trae Young, who would be disgruntled for maybe another playoff exit. Donovan Mitchell, if they go home in the first round. I think they're gearing up for this offseason to make a big splash in free agency. I think that's why they're standing back and just running it back to see what will happen.
Yeah, we'll see. And I think that the Lakers are finally realizing that you got to let these guys build some chemistry long term before you just start
shipping them out
away and trying to add more pieces that you might get the same results. So, hey, that's sometimes that's basketball 101. So we're gonna move into our last one. For the Bucks, we talked about the Bucks a little earlier. They brought in Pat Beverly, a guy that was playing pretty well for the Sixers. Shocking that the Sixers, another Eastern Conference contender, would ship off, a player that was playing well for them to somebody that they may meet at a later date in the playoffs. But the Sixers received Cameron Payne and a 2027 second round pick. I thought this was a solid pickup for Milwaukee because of where their deficiency is so far this season. That's defense, and Pat Bev is a defensive player of the year. He's not Scottie Pippen in 94, 95. He's not Jordan, or he's not Kawhi. But he's a guy that can be a pest to certain wing players and get under skin and cause them to make some mistakes. So I don't think that's bad. And he's a rough, tough guy, and I think maybe they see that bringing that in might bring some of that out of some of their other players. I don't know, but I didn't think this was a bad trade. They didn't really lose nothing. Cameron Payne could probably score a little better than Pat Bev, but he wasn't giving you much anyway. He played spot minutes at the point guard. But what do you think about the Bucks adding Pat Beverly?
Yeah, I think adding Pat Beverly is less about on the court and more about off the court. Mm-hmm. Obviously, what I mean by that is Patrick Beverly is one of those guys who can bring the locker room together, kind of unite everybody to kind of lock in either on the defensive end or address some issues on the offensive end. Give big fella the ball. Giannis has gone a few plays without some touches. Run that ball through him. If Dame is kind of having one of his funks, maybe he'll get in Dame's ear and be like, "Yo, I know we've had our differences, but you one of the best dudes out here. You need to show it. Get out there and light a fire on some of these dudes. So they can start playing." And he's that kind of person that can push those buttons and get certain players to buy in more because he's going to hold them to it. And, in terms of his production, he's a solid defender. He's a pest. He can make a shot here and there. I think, one game for the Sixers, I think it was against Boston. Did he drop 30 or 25 or something? He dropped a crazy amount. That's
more than he normally does, yeah.
Yeah. So, he obviously you're not going to call his number, but he can put the ball in the hole if it's absolutely necessary and they sag off of him for sure. And obviously he had a quote saying that since Kyle Lowry got bought out and he's going to the Sixers after he clears the waivers, that he said he's going to pick up Kyle Lowry 94 feet as soon as he checks in the game. I look forward to that. I think that matchup is actually on the 25th of February or the 19th, or not 19th because we're already 20th, but I think that matchup's coming up in the next few days. So put that on your calendar and let's see what Mr. Pat Beverly does to Kyle Lowry.
He's going to add some intensity there for those Bucks that is probably much needed. So we're going to end it there. Some pretty interesting trades this year. Needle movers. I think we're still going to see the same teams that we thought from the beginning of the season and even halfway through. I think we're pretty much sure of who we're going to see towards the end of this, the postseason, that are going to get it done. Most of those teams didn't really make moves, didn't need to. I will mention Boston got Xavier Tillman from the Grizzlies. Solid pickup. I think that helps them. But did they need it? Probably not. But you always like an insurance policy. So if something happens and you need him to play big minutes, we saw last year when Steven Adams was out and Brandon Clark played some pretty good minutes against the Lakers, against Anthony Davis and those boys. So, Boston made a little move that will probably help them. So I think it's going to be an interesting postseason this year, but I think the teams that we already recognize as contenders are going to stay in that bracket and in that tier. So we're going to end it here. Any parting words, Big Nige?
Nope. I've been up since 4 o'clock, so I'm starting to power
down. That man's ready to get into his bed. That's Mr. Moneybags over there. He had to go get that money early in this morning. But please, if you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe to the channel. It only helps us, and it just helps us continue to put out more content. And hopefully, YouTube will get together. The algorithm will figure out where to send this, and we'll get back to you guys, and you guys will enjoy the content. So stay tuned. We will be back very soon, and GOATcast out.
Peace.